This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, folks from all over the world. Welcome to Milwaukee. We are here at the magical Milwaukee Mile. We are going to be having a fun time today because we have got the Lotus 49, which would be in place of old-fashioned Indianapolis motor machines, around a 1 mile State Fair Milwaukee Mile racetrack. Hello everybody, I'm Cameron Walsh and with Connery Maddock and Hugo Louis. This is the Pacific Majors Series live on iRacing Live and the iRacing eSports Network. Cars already getting on the track right now. It's going to be a grand old time, as it would be. This is going to be probably one of the most interesting oval races that you could ever see here, as we have got just a straight up 1 mile near flat track to bring about the classic ovals that we might have seen back in the 60s. And well, that is going to be probably one of the most interesting sessions of the Majors Series. As we know, the Majors Series goes all over the world, as we're looking at the Pacific, the European numbers. Of course, Christian Chalnier is your points leader. Matthias Magnussen. Marcus Niskanen is in the third position as the cars are now rolling, as this is flat track, oval, open wheel racing at its best. And this is going to be a grand old time. As we said, cars are getting ready right now here at Milwaukee. Now, Milwaukee has been playing host to open wheel racing for a very long time, back in the old days, of course, and as such, what better track for the Tony Bettenhausen 200? So, as the European Major Series gets ready to rock and roll, we've got ourselves lined up here on the racing surface. So, this is going to be interesting for me. I'd love to say that I know how these cars are going to want to take this track, whether they're going to try to run the inside line or the outside line, but I can't say I do, as the Mustang pulls off the track and we've turned the clocks back, because it is Lotus 49 here for the Tony Bettenhausen 200 mile, as we are green, as the cars right now hugging the inside line. Already some action in the third and fourth, fifth positions, as everyone's just trying to seat themselves, I think, into the outside line. 1 lap of 200 miles. Of course, that is why it's the Tony Bettenhausen 200. So let's bring in Connery. Well, it's open wheel short track racing, and it's not necessarily something that I think we've ever done, but at the same time, the entertainment value has got to be there.
The closest thing I have to it, we already have a yellow out there on circuit. That's a big moment there coming in towards turn 1. That's Joshua Wolf there. That brings out your first yellow of the day. So the driver of number 48 having major problems coming down into the first turn for the first time. It looks like you didn't get any help at all from anyone. Just a little bit of snap oversteer on entry to the corner, and it sends him into that safer barrier. So a very quick yellow just as we were getting started.
Yeah, just like that. And Joshua Wolf is, I think, in 5th or 6th position in the Pro Series standings, so that's going to be a big one, as he'll have to get himself into pit lane. As we can see there, the beautiful innards of the Lotus machine, as he's decided to remove the entire front nose cone off. Of course, rear-engined, which doesn't have any kind of cowling or anything like that, so either way, just get a quick look at the replay there. It almost looks like he got he toasted him just a little too fast into corner number, I think that's 3 and 4, and he didn't want to eat the rears of the cars in front of him, so he'll have to bring that car down into pit road, and everyone else, I think, is going to stay out.
Yeah, no reason to come in with just, around about 2 corners of racing done. So David Baker, though, will bring that car down on towards the pit lane. Not exactly sure what's the deal with the number 33 machine. He wasn't involved in that incident at all, but he'll get himself down on the pit lane and cycle himself towards the back of the field. Still a decently, race distance is kind of decent here. Of course, we do have those 200 laps, 200 miles, so it is a long race, and for some drivers, they just kind of just want to settle into their rhythm first and foremost, and they'd prefer to do that at the back of the grid, where instead of in the mid-pack, where things can get very, very busy indeed coming through that particular section. So right now we are just about to get ourselves that 1 to go mark, and those drivers can stack up double file once again. But Christian Challenger, I'm impressed, just even through turns 1 and 2, how much of a gap he was actually able to pull out over the rest of them. Of course, he gets the best launch being the leader on the start, but I didn't really expect it to be all that much. So of course, he's going to be a force to be reckoned with in this particular race. NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series driver here on iRacing, and of course they're heading into the later rounds of their season, so his workload is going to be pretty busy over the next couple of weeks, but still turning up here to the major series, and of course still the championship leader in this one as well, so he's looking out to seal things out here as well.
Well, not only that, I mean, you just got to talk about how unique this setup is. I mean, it's Milwaukee. Not a lot of people race it as the lights are out on the pace car. But to take the Lotus 49 and spend the time to figure out how to get the car all sorts and ready, and then come out here and be confident about it, yeah, that's going to be good fun.
Going to be absolutely fantastic. So pace car lights are out, and we will of course have a single file restart here, IndyCar style, at the Milwaukee Mile. Pace car's just about to angle itself down to the safety of pit lane and letting these historic Formula cars have their way with the 1 mile long circuit. Waiting for the green flag for Challenger, gets a very, very good launch indeed. This time we are still green flag racing here at Milwaukee. Is there any dramas down in towards turn number 1? This time I'm not spotting anything here, Cam, so this is the actual start, I suppose.
Yeah, nice and green for us right now. I love how you can see these guys hitting through the gears with the nose just dipping so massively through the corners as everybody's just making their way through. I think the line as it would be without any aerodynamics would be the hug the outside wall on the corner exit and try to get to the inside on corner entry, and I think people are mostly just trying to take it easy for the most part. They want to get comfortable. You can practice all you want, but being in a pack of 20 different machines is certainly not something you can just call up and practice whenever you want.
Yep, oh, big moment there for Riley Thompson. He's able to hold on to that car somehow through 3 and 4. Troy Anderson will head his way through on his inside, but Riley Thompson, I just get the protractors out, everybody. How much of a slide was that one for the number 58? We'll get to see it up on replay for you now. They see him heading down in towards turn number 3. Big moment, and he's able to hold it. Great save from the 58.
Yeah, it does wash him out. He only loses 1 or 2 spots there, so I mean that's good there. But yeah, these cars, I think it's pretty obvious from all the different camera angles. Yeah, whichever way you look at it, that instant is a big scary one there for Riley Thompson, but he's able to recover it, so we won't have our second yellow of the day just yet here in this one. We're looking at the battle between Joe Valverde and Kurt Krum there. That's for the battle for P number 4 out there on circuit. Krum looking to have quite a bit of speed here on this very early run, looking for that run out of turn 4, and maybe you can be able to pull the pass, sling it down the inside at turn number 1, as everyone right now as it stands looking to run a very similar line through all of the corners here, all just pinned down towards that white line. That may just change as this race goes on, as the rubber gets laid down, as the heat builds up on that inside line. Or, if things don't get as bad, maybe they'll all still stay down there for the entirety of the race. We do not know just yet, but Kurt Krum still a little bit of a wider line through turn 3 and 4 that time, trying to find where the grip is behind the
wheel of that 777, but across the line, he seems nowhere close enough to be able to make this pass happen.
Yeah, no, not just yet, as we're getting that lovely over-the-shoulder camera view that we're all so used to.
Yeah, it gives you a good perspective of the wheel inputs, indeed, and of course, you know, you can vaguely see the tachometer there as we'll go through out of 4 now. Laps ticking down very, very quickly here on towards lap number 12 already for these drivers, and this is the closest battle that we have here on circuit for P4 and 5. Joe Valverde and Kurt Krum, and Krum looking for the great exit off of 2 there. Valverde seemed to have bogged down a little bit, and here comes the move then for Kurt Krum towards the inside at turn 3. Not going to be able to sling one down the inside there just yet. You can just see him getting on that inside curb, that yellow curb on the inside of 3 and 4, and well, it hasn't really resulted much here for Kurt Krum just yet. But he does seem to be the faster of the 2 drivers here today. And, well, if you want an update on your race leader, well, Christian Challoner has already got a 2.3 seconds gap over P2. That's Adam Facaponti there with Putklis there in P3. So some of these names are relatively difficult, but then we have Joe Valverde and Kurt Krum, very easy names to pronounce here, battling it out for P4 and 5. Just 0.2 of a second between these guys on the way down in towards turn 1. Kurt Krum now starting to have a little bit of an explore, a little bit of an experiment with a bit of a higher line coming up through turn 1 and 2, but I don't think that groove has been able to come in just yet. Maybe it'll come in later on in the race, but right now Krum is not able to get any momentum by running this second line slightly higher through the corners than Valverde. So he's going to learn that one quite quickly. He may just be able to duck himself back in line here, and then maybe wait and bide his time to be able to try and get this past. And still trying with that second line through turns 1 and 2, and well, gets a slight run through the middle of the corner. It's just been the exits where Valverde has been particularly strong, except just that one time a couple of laps ago where he bogged down out of 2.
Yes, and hopefully everything is all hunky-dory and we can all hear me. Yes, okay, great. So I think for me, for what's been going on, Kurt Krum, like every time he goes into, he has so much more speed going in through the apex that he has to actually let off, which unsettles his car, and Joe Valverde, obviously not doing that, is able to really pull off and not have any issues, and you can actually see how much of a gap Zhao has built. And looking a little bit back, I do see the battle for 7th position ongoing. Troy Anderson and Marcus Niskanen, they have closed up significantly, either because they've been locking in on Kurt Krum and Zhao Valverde or not, but it looks like Troy has been able to get at least a decent line. It looks a bit like how Kurt Krum was trying to run his line and closing on the rear of the bombshell driver Marcus Niskanen, one of the pro-European championship leaders, or people who are out front, I guess would be the better term for it. But either way, it almost looks like the same exact thing happened with Joao Valverde and Kurt Krum. The car just, he's trying to take that much more launched angle, the throwing it really into the corners, as compared to Niskanen and Valverde, and they've just been able to throw the car through the apex, and it's so unique, as it were, to be using this open wheel formula machine here just like they used to. I mean, really, this is basically a very similar to the old Indianapolis cars or the USAC cars that we were familiar with back in the 60s, and to try to get used to the correct line and everything like that, to throw the car through, as we look at Cordell Cologne and Colin Marzolf. It is a difficult thing to try and force yourself to learn how to slide and throw the car through the corners, because really these tires don't really do much for you at all.
Yeah, you know, this is the time before, you know, the complicated chemistry of tire compounds was fully understood. I believe I will phrase it in that way. So it's going to be very, very difficult for these drivers to be able to, you know, manage the handling of these cars over a run, especially since due to the fact that these cars basically have next to no downforce. And when you think about open wheel cars, you think about well, that's cars that tend to have lots of downforce. Not the case with these cars, so they're very, very tire limited in what they're able to do here today. We've got a little bit side-by-side, or at least attempted side-by-side a little bit further back there. That was down right at the rear end of your field, involving Riley Thompson there in P17 right now. So he's attempting to work his way up after his little bit of a big moment, shall we say, earlier on in the race. He has a good pack of cars ahead of him. He's able to tuck behind them and try and get, well, a little slipstream these cars provide here. But right now, just working to make those inroads, like 10th of a second a lap, and eventually he'll be in the position where he is able to challenge all those cars ahead of him. Meanwhile, side by side right at the front of the train, then that's Mike Gaunt going down the inside of Marzov there, and Marzov might be a threat of losing 2 positions, but Gaunt slides up through the middle of the corner, and well, he has to cause a big stack up behind. That's David H. Baker trapped on the inside now, and well, we've got Andreas Robertson also trying to challenge on that outside. Is that outside line going to come in at this stage? Doesn't look like, although it is starting to get there. Maybe another 20 laps or so, and maybe and cars can run up there.
Yeah, definitely, maybe. And this pack from 12th position on back is really. These guys are definitely pushing on it, as Riley Thompson's washed out on that high side. I think it's just mostly a temperature thing, as Colin Marzov covers the inside going in through corners number 3 and 4, but David H. Baker gets such a better run here, as these cars, they're just so dependent on the driver and that right foot of the throttle application here, as Andreas Robertson almost wants to make it look 3 wide, and Andreas Robertson will crash into the outside wall and throws the caution out, and I don't think he actually hit anybody through that, but Riley Thompson was washed out, and Colin, you're Connery. Who's Colin? My goodness. No, I will say, Andreas Robertson, he managed to crash that car and not hit anybody, and I almost think that that's a skill.
Yeah, that's basically a miracle there, as he bounces back into traffic. Riley Thompson narrowly avoids it on the inside there and almost gets his left front wheel clipped off by the pit wall, but thanking his lucky stars that he wasn't able to hit it. And well, we'll get ourselves a view on board with him. You can see how close that wheel is to the wall. Whoa, that's so close. That could have been a race-ending instant right there for the 58.
Yeah, most definitely. Now, thankfully, because of the major series here, there is one fast repair. So Andreas Robertson will be using that fast repair. However, when you're only 25 laps into a 200-lap race, you're a quarter way to the halfway mark. This is not the time that you want to be using that fast repair. Of course, for him, it's obviously the perfect time to use it. But I will say, if you haven't been, if you've been curious who's up front, well, it's Christian Chalnier. He's been running very strongly over Adam Fascio-Ponti and Uldis Puteklis. But I will say, for Christian Chalnier, I mean, this kind of just it goes from strength to strength. I mean, he's just showing how has the ability to basically drive anything he gets in, and whether that's because he just practices so much, or because he's got a good team behind him that works with him, or something. But it just seems that Christian, just whatever he gets in, he's just able to be proficient at it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a particular strength, especially of some of the primarily NASCAR guys on the service. Those are usually the ones that get themselves, try their hand at some of the more interesting nuances of like the road cars of rallycross as well. And Chalner, one of those. Of course, you had the Sturgis brothers that were the big showmen in terms of that, in the history of iRacing. But Chalner, of course, like you say, particularly strong in any car that he gets in. Just having a look at sort of the tire wear situation that we have going on. They were running around about, Challenger at least was running 29 4s early on in his stint, and well, later on they were just getting themselves into the 29 7s. So just a couple of tenths of a second in terms of the wear going on right here, which is why you didn't see a lot of cars come down on towards the pit lane to get tires changed, for example, because these tire changes on these Lotus 49s, they do take a fairly long time, so you might end up going a lap down if you take them. But there we go, pace car down on towards the lane. Green flag in the air once again here at the Milwaukee Mile, and China leading at them all around the field, coming down in towards turn number 1 and 2 for the first time in this restart. No big runs for anyone all the way down the line, so another clean restart here, Cam.
Yeah, and that's those single file restarts, which is totally how that goes, manages to catch off guard. But I will say, with these tires, they are the mallet hub tires. I think they have to take the mallet to the 3 spikes that hang off the tire, and it is a process. Normally, if I recall correctly, it would not be out of the norm for the driver to hop out of the car. Of course, back then, they didn't have any seat belts or anything like that, but they would hop out of the car and they would help with the pit stops, which kind of tells you everything. And what tells you everything about who's got the strength here, look at the gap that Christian Chandler has pushed already basically 1 second over a mile-long racetrack. That's just is so impressive.
Big moment there up on screen. That was Cordell Colon there. Impact with the safer barrier on the outside as well. Still no yellow, but I get the feeling we'll get one now. As we won't get one now. That was interesting. But Colon just on his head in the middle of the corner there. Let's have a look to see how that happens.
Well, this is open wheel racing, so these wheels, they do touch each other, and he tried to save it as best as he could, but the fact that the brakes, I think, are from the Bronze Age, really he isn't able to get that car slowed on down, and parked it. There is a roll hoop, I will say. Everyone's all like, oh, how dangerous.
The roll hoop, that's useless, though.
The roll hoop, it's fine, he's fine. Now, I will say that does kind of throw into what I was just saying, you know, the lack of seat belts, the all of that stuff. Some of these guys used to wear like leather helmets, but it just really kind of pushes the point home that this type of motorsport racing is very scary. But that is why it's good fun here on iRacing. Anyways, so I will say, Gilles Valverde right now, it seems like this is the second time now he has been getting absolutely swarmed, by the looks of it, by Kurt Krum in the beginning of these stints. And I almost wonder, I think in the beginning of the stints, the tires are colder, people's cars are different. Then as the run goes on, the tires heat up. Not necessarily wear away, and that changes the properties of the car. And it seems to me like Gilles just doesn't have a strong early stint car as Uldis Putiklis, however, does, because he is almost nipping the gearbox of Kurt Krum.
Yeah, just almost, but Putiklis then not able to pull off any passes at this moment in time. And we're just talking about that roll hoop. That roll hoop is actually lower than the driver's head, so I'm not entirely sure what purpose that serves. But this is basically ancient technology as far as racing is concerned. But as we see a great view of that 666 guiding its way around, there was a driver that pushed very, very deep into the corner there behind. There was Troy Anderson in the number 44, so he's trying to make some inroads here, not exactly doing the best job of it right now. And there's something to be said about being smooth and consistent here and not butchering corners just by trying to go deep and then you losing all your exit speed.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's kind of gathering the car up on the suspension, which you can see the suspension because it's literally right there, it's in the open, but you can see just how much the tire compression is going on, even in the left front. This is the lightest tire on the car, and even these Lotus 49 cars, they're obviously well balanced. That was kind of the big thing with, having a rear-mounted engine and everything like that. But just look at the difference between that left engine and the left engine, the left tire and the right tire, because you can just watch as the car gets thrown in here from Troy Anderson, just how much give the car has to give through it, and you try to think about that much weight getting pushed on these old classic tires. So basically, you're throwing the car into a drift every single corner and then saving it, which is not something that I'm comfortable with. Kurt Krum is still on the attack, here. He's trying maybe to push outside. Now he's going to look to the inside line here as they'll get their way onto here the backstretch of the Milwaukee Mile. Of course, you're watching the Major Series as Kurt Crum maybe thinking that outside line, but it's just not there. I think that inner apex, Connery, is just so much better for these cars, not perhaps setup-wise, but just for the car themselves, because the stancing of the cars with the suspension, you basically, you catch that slide mid-apex, and then you're able to throw the throttle on, but you can see Kurt Crum was just able to spear that car forward, but he just can't get around Gilles Valverde.
Yeah, outside line for 3 though. Is he going a little bit too deep? Well, he's keeping himself in position to be able to challenge a good run off the corner into turn 1. Might be the order of the day, but here comes Pootcliffe then. Inside perhaps for turn 1. No, he has no speed off of turn 4 to be able to make that one happen. Crum again attempting the second line through 1 and 2. Is he going to be successful this time? Valverde pushes up in the middle of the corner slightly. Still no way through there for that 777. And, well, it looks like the status quo is just going to be maintained here, or is it? Crum again still trying that outside, and Pootcliffe here just waiting in the winds, waiting to get himself involved in this one. Crum, that's a little bit of a better run off of turn 4. He's got the speed coming down the pit straight now. Across the line they will go on to lap number 40. Valverde still on the inside. That seems to be where the cars are the strongest at this moment in time, but Crum finally trying to make this one work. Here comes Pootcliffe, then almost contact between the two of them off of turn 2.
Yeah, Troy Anderson had to yield off of that one, and that allows Travis Henderson back way to pull through here. And Troy also having to just absolutely give up the ghost on that corner entry that last time, because it was Pootcliffe throwing way up the track here as the cars are still continuing on. This has absolutely been fantastic racing here in the mid-pack. And also, you'll have noticed that the clouds have come out, so the track will be cooling off slightly, and just as I say that, the cloud goes away and the sun comes back out, so ignore what I was just saying. But Troy is able to, however, during that, to get by Uldis Pootcliffe, perhaps, because it looks like Pootcliffe is able to get a good run on the outside.
Yeah, he is. So Pootcliffe will hold position for now. Still not completely safe for him. A big deep move into the corner for Troy Anderson. Here comes the run from Pootcliffe, though it gets stunted somewhat due to that Lotus pointing on ahead of him being exactly where it is. And now Henderson also third in line in this one, looking to try and get aggressive here as well over Pootcliffe. I think Pootcliffe, he just overdid the entry there to the corner, had to push up in the middle of the corner, but he was able to get then a sort of second late apex there to try and get that run off, but it was unsuccessful.
Marcus
There's a big moment there. The 47 car, is that in the pit lane?
Yes, he has crashed into the pit lane, which is, I saw his car traveling into pit lane and I was curious. As it turns out, that was not intentional. It was an unintentional move into pit lane. I will say, though, if you're going to wreck your car completely, and I mean, let's put it out here, the car is crab walking, so he'll pull that car into pit lane. He will get the faster pair, and I almost think they're putting tires on that thing, which I guess according to the...
It apparently it only takes around 15 seconds to do.
Yeah,
So
like
what I said
seconds.
earlier was inaccurate. But you gotta forgive me, I literally had 5 minutes notice coming into this race due to a late commentator dropout, I suppose. But yeah, the 47 will wait to get that service done and of course get their fast repair done. But that was a little bit of a weird incident. Still action out there on circuit though. The 44 of Anderson and the 666 of Pootcliffe are still relatively close together out there on circuit, and of course you have the battle between the 777 and the 384 that were 381, excuse me, that we have for P3 out there on circuit as well. Just 1/3 of a second between these guys at this moment in time. Kurt Crum, well, he started in 5th place, still runs in that 4th position, but to get himself on the podium here would be a good situation to have happen here early on in the race. We're still yet to get to 1/4 of the way through this 200-mile race, and Valverde still holding strong in P3 here, although I still don't think he's the faster of the two drivers. He's just been able to pull off the defense quite competently so far.
Absolutely, and you want to take a look at people who do have the speed. Take a look at Christian Chalnier right now, that number 73 machine. You can see there is nobody behind him for not just one corner, not just two corners, but one straightaway. he has a 7.5 second lead over Adam Fasciaponte, and Adam Fasciaponte is running quick too. He has got a 2-second lead. As we're looking right now back to your third and fourth positions, it's João Valverde and Kurt Krum, and Krum has been trying to really push in here on the attack, and you can't really, there is not a chrome bumper option for the Lotus 49. So you really have to be smart about it. You don't want to touch your tires. We saw what happened to Cordell Colon when he managed to brush the tires together. So it is just a constant back and forth now between how Kurt Krum wants to position his car and João Valverde at this Milwaukee Mile circuit, racing through. And I will say, this racetrack has been, I can see why they picked it. It's been a really good race here so far.
Yeah, absolutely. And, well, when you're looking at things from the perspective of someone like Christian Challener, well, you've got to be concerned because now you are going to have to deal with lap traffic in what I would say is a good couple of laps time here, around about 3 or 4 before he catches the tail end of the field here. So he'll have to draw on all of that PGNFE Series experience when it comes to dealing with maybe some slower traffic that's fallen foul of things early on in the sort of races that he does in that PGNFE Series. And of course on these short tracks as well, where the lap traffic issue just gets a little bit more exacerbated because the snake tries to eat its tail, so to speak.
Most definitely. I mean, you talk about a Bristol or a Dover or something like that. I mean, you're in lap traffic when you've got a full car, full 40 grid of machines. I mean, you're in lap traffic near instantaneously. But I will say for Christian Challener, he is running 29-second laps, 29.5 second about. Andreas Robertson, whom he is going to be closing in on, as we're still following this battle here with the 44 machine of Troy Anderson and Ulyss Butaglis here. You're looking at the almost a 3-second, maybe a 1-second difference here. And actually, Christian Challener is in lap traffic now. He's on the inside of Colin Mullersoff, and he's going to now try to get around Andreas Robertson. Now, of course, the first couple of lapped cars is always going to be the easiest, Connery, because, well, they understand. Though they are fighting for each other, they understand, okay, leader's coming through, no big deal. It's when you start getting into, the next 5, I guess, would probably be it. Pretty much from 12th on back is very hotly contested right now. And if they find themselves really racing hard, it might get quite difficult because, if I'm one of those lap cars and I see him behind me, I'm going to go, well, he's not in a hurry to pass me. He's got almost a 10-second lead, so I can race my competition and wait until it's a little bit easier for him to get by.
Yeah, absolutely, and Challener will be very well aware of that fact right now because he does have a couple of dueling cars ahead of him, and well, we do have that battle for 15th and 16th going on up on screen for you now. That is the number 89 and the number 333 there. So Challener will be coming up on those guys in the not too distant future here, so it'll be interesting to see how that gets affected by your race leader trying to head his way through. So yeah, with lap 55 in this event, the lap traffic definitely a factor for Challenger to have to manage, and if we get a look at him, you can just see he's stuck behind two drivers going side by side at this moment in time, and that's Cordell Colon, big slide right in front of your race leader there. And well, Challener now finally finds himself on the inside of both of them, but that is not what you want to see if you're Challener.
No, and you kind of want to get by as fast as possible. I thought for sure the car was going to snap around on him there, but no, he gathered it right back up. And Cordell Colon, of course, who had that incident early on. Wait, he's the one that parked the car on top of his head, no?
Yeah, I think so. So maybe he's...
Okay, so he had to have to get that back of it. Well, you see, when the top of your helmet it takes all of the brunt, as soon as you get the car rolled over, you're fine. As you can just see here, the snap of the racing machine here I believe it's coming up here into this corner, this next corner. You can see the car snap just a little bit there. He starts pulling into, there's a pace car as, nope, this is just him getting oh, there, yes it is. You can see the rears start to go, and once the rears start to go, he has to chase it back up the track gently, I think is the best way to put it. And Christian Chalnier now passing Diego Jimenez Hormelia as the clouds come out once again here over the Milwaukee circuit in Wisconsin. And I will say that cloud coverage, Connery, it can really affect the track temperature, as I mean, we have been doing this long enough where that wasn't a thing, but now the clouds come out, the track changes almost instantaneously, and now you're almost driving in an entirely different sort of situation because the track temperature is going to be so different.
Of course, that effect has been mitigated somewhat in a recent patch, where now the track actually has. In a way, the heat model actually has some depth to it, so heat sinks into the track now. So these wild temperature swings that you used to get with cloud cover coming in and out has now been reduced. Of course, there's still an effect, but it isn't as drastic as we've previously seen it, which is, the way it is right now is a little bit more realistic than it was.
Yeah, and I have to say, I'm very happy that the product has been evolving as always. I mean, it was just a kind of a flat paper surface sort of thing, like where, that's where the heat was penetrating to. Now, since they've added the depth, now it's more of a flow of up and down, which is great. But I will say the cloud, it doesn't appear to be going away anytime soon this time. So hey, that's good for me because it proves like my point, hopefully in like 5 or 6 laps. But I will say, Gilles Valverde and Kurt Krum are still fighting for that third position. And I would like to talk about other stuff, but it just seems like every single time, actually, now this is the interesting part, Connery, because Gilles Valverde has caught Adam Fasciaponti. Now, whether Fasciaponti has washed out or almost had a near incident, I'm not sure. But Valverde, for all his defensive running, has now caught, as we have a caution on the racetrack.
47 having a couple of problems. That's Marcus Niskanen. So this is one of your front runners in the championship, if I recall what you said correctly earlier, Cam. And, he's just had a couple of problems into turn 3. Car not wanting to get the back. Well, the back end just wanting to swap ends there with the front. And, he's able to avoid the barrier. So able to get that car back going, albeit still 3 laps down in this situation. But it is the cause of what is your third yellow of the day.
Yeah, and I mean, that was a great job for not hitting the outside wall. Let's be real here. That could have snapped on him, and he could have parked that one in that safer barrier. But nope, he manages to get that locked around, and he is good to go. So I will say, pace car is out in front. I don't believe that we would be looking at tires. I do imagine that everyone's going to take tires at least once. I'm just throwing this out there. My inner gut just says the people are going to be taking tires at least once. Nobody needs to take fuel or anything like that because, I mean, there's enough fuel in the car. We do have a couple of takers.
Well, a couple are coming in, but I think this is for reasons other than trying to get those
Kurt Krum is one of them
changed, because Kurt Krum, he does have let's see what happens here then, since that chassis doesn't look to be all that straight, but he is going to take the tire situation anyway, and obviously Riley Thompson is also heading his way in, but I'm not entirely sure why they're coming down for tires at this stage, if they are, because the time lost by old tires right now, I mean, it's not going to be a thing. These tires are built basically like bulletproof vests. They just don't wear out, and you can't butcher them at all. So
I think rather than them getting worn out, they get glazed over. I think is the actual happening. It's not that they're losing tread or anything like that, because that's how things happen on modern slicks. the tires sort of collect enough material that the grippy bits kind of go away. If I'm remembering correctly, but I will say, I don't think this is actually that bad of an idea, though I will say for Kurt Krum, he now is going to have some 10 cars in front of where he was, which I'm not sure if that's great, but what could happen is that him having new tires could mean that now finally he could get by João Valverde. He just now has to get back up there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we will keep a careful eye on his performance coming through the rest of this one to see if those new tires actually do have an impact when they have around about 65 laps on them. Well, the old tires have about 65 laps on them, so 65 lap difference is what we're going to see here when it comes to Kurt Krum and the rest of the field. But I still don't think he's going to really make all that much progress here, considering how the tires have kept in very, very good shape, which is to be expected with how the tires have been, well, of course, in the history of racing, have been constructed where they could last basically the entire season instead of just about 20 laps of a race, as you see in F1 these days. But right now, we do see those pace car lights go off on top of that Ford Mustang iRacing liveried car, and Christian Challenger is preparing himself to get himself the green flag once again.
Yeah, and I will say, of course, we talk about historic racing. Well, historic racing's, I don't think it's ever been as popular as it is nowadays, and I always am a big fan of that one tire company, Avon, which manages and makes all the different formulas and all the old recipes and all the stickies and the ickies and the whatevers to allow historic racing to really take on a whole new level. When you would think just throwing on slicks, well, that's not very fun when you have cars like this. So they're able to make the tires like that, and that's why I really enjoy real life racing. As the Mustang, it really throws itself out, and Christian Chandler throws himself at the start finish line almost as soon as the car clears. He throws that car on in. He doesn't want to waste any time. He wants to get right back into it, as it looks like Thomas Pedersen, who is a lap down, is going to be starting in second. It almost looks to me like there wasn't a wave around.
Doesn't look like Mike Gaunt there. You can see him in that number 886 car on the inside line. Here comes Joshua Wolf as well. Currently in P6 in that number 48 car. There's a big fan out of cars right in front of them. Multiple instances, 2x2, down in towards turn number 1 then. And these cars just all scrapping it out for position here. There's a couple of bits of lap traffic also involved in this one. So how do you manage to find yourself through all of this is the big question for those cars that are on the leading lap. You can just see that view from up above. Everyone all fans out through 3 and 4 as well, and well, there's been no major instance just yet, which surprises me considering how there are cars pretty much everywhere on the circuit. We've even seen a 3 wide in the backfield in towards turn 1. We are on board with that 84 though of Fasaponti there. He's lost 2 positions there, I believe. He did start in P number 2 for the restart. Now he's down to P4, so he's a big loser in terms of the restart there.
Yeah, Kurt Krum has already moved up to the 9th position, as it were, and these cars, it is one good thing to expect always with the major series, and that people play nicely with one another, even if the faster ones and the slower ones and everything like that. And I will say for Adam Fasciaponte, something has happened with his machine, because he has now dropped 2 positions. I am wondering if perhaps the lap traffic kind of caught him out, because now it's going to be João Valverde, Ildis Putiklis, and then Adam Fasciaponte, as everyone's starting to finally get themselves locked into single file line. Cordell Colon. No. I was going to say Colin, got washed out on the outside, but it's Cordell Cologne. It just looks like Colin because, reading. But Troy Anderson has gotten through his inside there. Riley Thompson has gotten through his inside. Kurt Krum now, with his brand spanking new tires, it doesn't seem to really be going anywhere. But you know what? I'm all for it, because I want to see myself, for all we know, once the temperature comes in, Kurt Krum's gonna show us. But you never know. But he's right now lapped behind Riley Thompson. And if I'm remembering correctly, I think Riley Thompson was the other car that came in to pit lane and got tires.
Yeah, Kurt Crum now big run on the inside there through 1 and 2 over Riley Thompson then. So the battle for P number 8. Certainly a thing here in this one on lap 72 of this event. Kurt Crum, of course, having come down in for the tires, and well, he had a big run there on the outside, and well, Riley Thompson, he just sort of washed that in the middle of the corner and able to block that line away from Kurt Crum at this stage. There's still a huge gaggle of cars ahead of these guys that they will eventually get caught up onto here, because it's Joshua Wolf and Travis Henderson that were battling it out for P number 5 ahead of these guys, and we can get our view towards that now. Number 24 trying to defend right now, very well, bit of a wider line through the middle of the corner there. Joshua Wolf low, trying to get that run off the corner, and he does. Side by side, half a car length between them, then down in towards turn 1. Wolf dives it down in still, and now that's going to be the position complete there for Joshua Wolf, unless there's something Henderson can do off the corner. I think he's lost too much momentum there on that outside by washing up, so he has to slot in behind.
Yeah, and his front wheels were really moving and shaking all over, so once he washed out, he really had to gather the car back up. But you know what? That's the good thing about these machines with as far as aerodynamics and everything like that. While there is a big draft effect as far as the bullet punching a hole in through the air, so of course you can really suck up behind the cars behind you. However, you don't have to depend on the aerodynamics going through the corners, so you can really just throw the cars in there, so it allows you to recover like Travis Henderson has, whereas we would see perhaps in stock cars or Indianapolis cars, the modern ones anyways, where something like that would really set somebody back 4, 5, 6 laps. As they'd have to do a full reset. Really, you can just jump right back into the action, as we're seeing as Travis Henderson. His front wheels do seem to be doing a lot of skittering, a lot of counter steering, as all these drivers are, of course, but him especially, and that really seems to be what's happening. He gets behind Joshua Wolf here as he goes to the inside of Diego Jimenez Hormilia. Of course, that's the 13th. That's a lap down. And the one car ahead of them, the number 7 machine, Travis Pedersen, is also a car that is a lap down, as Troy Anderson and Kurt Crum are going to work by them now. It just looks to me like Travis Henderson is going to basically be stuck behind Joshua Wolf, just as we saw earlier with Kurt Crum and Gilles Balbert.
It could well be the case here. Everyone all still stacked up here for P5, 6, 7, and 8. Down the inside of the lap traffic they go. That's Thomas Pedersen, who's currently 1 lap down compared to the rest of these guys. He's in the 12th place position out there on circuit, trying his best to try and get out of the way here, but Anderson lost a little bit of time as a result of that one. Not too much to panic about at this stage as he falls back in line. It's the inside line train it is here for the mid-pack guys. No one creeping up just yet to try and find better grip elsewhere. And well, Troy Anderson very deep in towards 3 and 4. That was a huge amount of entry speed that he took, but he's not able to do anything with it.
No, not for now anyways. I think these guys are really just trying to figure out how to throw the cars in. And another car that I'm seeing having a lot of transient motion is Troy Anderson's machine, as we're seeing Kurt Crum. I think he's figuring something out. I think he throws the car. Let's see here. Oh, actually, he'll pull to the inside, so maybe not this corner, but he seems to be throwing the car to the outside, and he's getting a really good exit. And we need to see how about he's managing that. You're looking at the big old rear tires of Troy Anderson in front of you, as here we go. He runs to that outside line. You can see he kind of washes out just a little bit, but now he gets the power on, and just look at how much overspeed he has compared to Troy Anderson. However, he has nowhere to go with that speed, so he's trying to learn how to do kind of an over-under sort of thing. He gets so very close, he has to do the counter steering, and of course Troy Anderson gives him plenty of room, and he will get that maneuver done. And now Kurt Crum rolling onto the inside of Joshua Wolf, which is surprising. Where did Wolf come into this?
Yeah, lost 2 positions. He got passed by Travis Henderson, and thanks to his compromised line, that was Kurt Crumming his way through, and it make it lose 3 positions here for Joshua Wolf. That has been a horrible lap for him. Cycled to the back of this mid-pack train now for positions just inside of your top 10, so he's going to be feeling quite rightfully frustrated about that one. Kurt Crum still trying to make the moves here. Outside line coming off of turn 4, not going to result in anything here just yet, as he's been the big mover here coming through the field. I'm not sure whether that's down to tyres or whether that's down to him just being outright faster in 1 lap pace by default over some of the rest of these mid-pack runners, since he was running towards the front of that one earlier on anyway. But Joshua Wolf now trying to look and trying to find any way to file himself back through on these guys, because losing 3 positions inside of a single lap, that is, as a driver, that would frustrate me to beyond belief.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the lap times here, and if anything, I think the tires have just allowed him to pick his starting point from where he's putting on the accelerator, because you can see Kurt is able to get a little bit earlier into the accelerator than the competition just so far. But as far as his lap times go, however, his lap times are slower, but that is because he is in traffic, he's fighting, and he really needs to clear Travis Henderson, because that will get him back into 4th position, which is where he was before. But either way, I think another thing to think about is Troy Anderson and Joshua Wolf. They're going to be sliding in here, and Troy Anderson, is really able to get a really hefty throw into that inside line. He seems to be very comfortable under braking and getting that car in, and that's going to throw Kurt off, because Kurt, who's enjoying that outside line and then checking it through across the apex, whereas Troy is really throwing it hard into the inside and then washing it out. These two guys, it's one of those points where perhaps a little bit more like dirt racing, where they're taking such 2 different lines that at some point they will converge, and that's not going to be fun when they do. But Kurt having to run to the inside line, thinking maybe that will help. And well, I mean, if you're Kurt Crum, I mean, you've basically exchanged Joel Valverde for Travis Henderson at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. Jo Valverde currently 5 seconds down the road compared to these guys, and there are a good couple of cars that still need to be past 4 position here for Kurt Crum to get right back onto the back of the driver that he was competing with earlier on in the race. And Crum still trying to find an angle off the corner to be able to make this one work, but Henson putting his car in all the right places right now. A big look towards the inside for that 777 car. You can see that car just stepping out the back end, just getting a little bit tail happy almost. Well, you're early on the throttle coming out of 4, but it was a complete roadblock there for Henderson, and now Troy Henderson has a look around the outside then in towards turn number 1, looking for that up and under move. He's overdone it though, oversteer, almost down onto the apron, able to come back out onto the circuit. And Joshua Wolf, now he was going to capitalize on that one, but he simply couldn't find an angle that will allow him to do so. Big look towards the inside then for turn 3, not going to commit on the brakes into there.
Yeah, see, this is why I'm bummed out that I didn't get to race in this one. I was really wanting to for some reason. I don't know why. I've never raced this car on an oval before, but it seemed to me like this race is going to be a good fun as far as action and passing, and that is exactly what it is doing here. Kurt Crum is just able to get so much speed off the corner exit, and I do think it's those rear tires that he got, those new rear tires. It's allowing him to pick his punch point where he starts the throttle, and he does seem to be able to get on the throttle a little bit earlier. However, he just can't seem to pick anywhere to get around Travis Henderson, and that is part of the course, the Milwaukee Mile, the Magic Mile, of course, as it's known here in Wisconsin. So it's just a great big challenge here, as it is, of course, Christian Chandler, who is beginning to be in lap traffic with a massive 10-second gap already over Joel Valverde, who's running in 2nd position. Ulysses Puticus is in the 3rd position, and Fascia Ponte has dropped down into the 4th position after that restart. And then between those two, it is about a 5-second gap between Fascia Ponte and Travis Henderson, and that is where we have been following along the action here on the iRacing Esports Network here for the Tony Bettenhausen 200-mile Lotus race here at, of course, Milwaukee. And I will say, Connery, as we're just about to hit halfway through, Kurt Crum will throw that car to the inside line, and he doesn't allow Travis Henderson to have his entry here, and Travis will have to cut off the nose of Troy Anderson, and he will now drop down into the 5th position, allowing Kurt Crum the open space that he needs to hunt down the lead pack.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very interested to see the pace of Crum now. Now that he's able to, be disposed or able to dispose Travis Henderson. Looks to break away from the rest of this midfield pack right now. Meanwhile, your race leader has just gotten himself through on a little bit of traffic here and there. No huge dramas in terms of the driver right at the front of the field. That one's Christian Challoner. He still has a good couple of cars in the not too distant future to try and get past, but I'm pretty sure he is competent enough to be able to do so. Oh, someone almost spun into the pit lane again. That was the number 47 car, Niskanen. Just, playing with that one a little bit. Big moment there out of turn 4, and so it was almost a little bit deja vu there, Cam.
It basically was, but this time he was able to save the car rather than throwing it into another circle here. So good on him. But I will say, meanwhile, Adam Fasciaponte has gotten by Uldis Putiklis, and so he is now taken over in the 3rd position. I noticed that a couple of laps back, and everyone seems to be kind of getting strung out. However, the battle for 5th position is still, or 6th position is still ongoing. Travis Henderson versus Troy Anderson, and Anderson getting the door closed on him there quite sharply, with Joshua Wolf on looking, and the cloud coverage does come out just but for a moment, which is a great dynamic thing to see, of course. But Troy, he just seems to be enjoying a very capable car of throwing it into the corner, but however, in doing so, you really compromise your corner exit, and when you have somebody like Travis Henderson who's doing the slow in, fast out type of methodology, it's just very hard to get himself through, and that's actually allowing Joshua Wolf to close in.
Yeah, the driver lost 3 positions inside a lap just about 10 or so laps ago. He looks to still try and recover things somewhat, but that's very, very slow off of turn number 2 there for that number 48 car, so not getting the best of exits at all coming through that corner. I'm just amazed to see how nervous some of these cars are coming down into the corner. It just seems the car just wants to swap ends on you every single time you even look towards the apex of a corner. So it must be really, really tough to try and wheel these things around, let alone get themselves 1 lap completed, let alone going fast enough to be able to even run at the front.
Well, it kind of shows us why all the old champions of the USAC and the IndyCar and the Auto Club and all that stuff like that were dirt car racers, which were basically, they were the old sprint cars, or really, I think at that time period, if I'm remembering correctly, they basically were these cars, with only obviously modified for dirt racing. It is certainly a grand challenge, and I think that's probably one of the big things with the Major Series. Of course, the Major Series, probably one of the most colossal efforts I have ever seen and hosted in private league racing, as it were. Where you basically, every single month, you get together and you take a car that you probably never drove before on a track that you most certainly have never been on before, and you race. Now, of course, it makes it sound like people don't know what they're doing. They put a lot of practice into it. There's hosted practice sessions. Everyone's nice and helpful for the most part. Well, when they can, anyways. Of course, sometimes when you go to the top end of the stock car tracks and where the hot setups, as you would imagine, are. Whereas compared to this, I'm pretty sure everyone's helping everyone out because they all want to have a good time, as we're seeing here, and that is delivering, because we have had a lot of action. And as we close out lap number 100, Connery, we've only had 3 cautions.
Yeah, I believe the current count stands at 3 in this one, so it has been relatively clean for the vast majority of drivers out there today, but heading our way across the line to get ourselves on towards lap number 101, which will mean that we are officially halfway through this 200-mile race with 100 miles completed. And well, Travis Henderson still trying to hold on to that P number 6 there. Troy Anderson looking very, very aggressive there, coming through 1 and 2, but again, not able to complete the move. Here comes Joshua Wolf, though, very deep on that outside line. You can just see how that car was twitching all over the place. Certainly not happy about the situation. And now he's lost a couple of tenths of a second as a result.
I washed out there. I was there was a good chance that car might have snapped around on him, but you can just see how fast Troy Anderson is able to close into the rear of Travis Henderson. And can we go like is there like an onboard over the left shoulder for the driver? Because I want to see if we have that here. Because if we do, you could really just see how fast Troy is able to get close up to Travis Henderson. And it's almost getting to the point where I can totally understand that he'd be frustrated. There we go. But you can just see, look at how close he has to get. And he has to get off the throttle, and then he gets back on the throttle. He is basically taking the corner faster through all aspects of the corner. But every time he has to back off, and just in that moment that he backs off, he obviously will be losing that ground to Travis, because Travis will, of course, be on the throttle at that point. So what do you do if you're a driver in a situation like this? Because my goodness me, it's certainly one of the things that I like. I love having a challenge. I love being able to try and figure it out instead of just hoping that my setup lasts longer than somebody else's setup. But it is certainly an exciting thing here to try and figure your way out here. You can see just how close he gets again. He binds it up there. He has to just get a little bit slower, and Travis does kind of snap off the corner exit. So maybe Connery, he is starting to feel under that pressure.
Maybe, just maybe, but we've already seen how difficult it is to try and pull off overtakes here at the Magic Mile. But Henderson using that to the best of his advantage, the best he can right now, coming through these corners, because Troy Anderson, it seems like you need about half a second a lap by default to even attempt an overtake here, let alone anything less than that. So it's very, very tough for a lot of your drivers out here today to be able to get themselves by other drivers. And just talk to Joshua Wolf about that one, because he's experienced the exact opposite. He knows how easy it is to lose positions to other drivers.
Yeah, most definitely. You can almost look from Joshua Wolf's view and see this as well. Troy, the car is almost entering at a 45-degree angle in some corners, and that is just worrying me. But I will.
The pit lane? Interesting.
You think, if you were going to do that you would have done that 20 laps ago when there was a caution. So, I mean, a green flag pit stop. You're going to go probably 2-3 laps down. So Joshua Wolf pulling into pit lane. He will get tires, so that's interesting as the crew. I think this is one of the fork things where they have the forks in the front and forks in the back. And he'll get that sorted out. He'll get the rear tires changed, the front tires changed. He's off and away in 13.5 seconds. So Joshua Wolf off and away, but however, he will be the first car 1 lap down, and I'm curious about that. Maybe that was one of those situations where I don't know if he has a fuel gauge in there, but maybe he lightened up on the fuel just a little bit too much.
Well, he's actually the second car on the 1 lap down margin there, because Claude Belval managed to squeak his way ahead of him. So, yeah, I mean, not that really matters all that much, because the Lucky Dog situation, the Lucky Dog feature is off for this particular race. So even if the caution does come out, Belval won't be able to get himself back onto the leading lap. It's just the cars that are in front of your leader in that little pace car train that get themselves their lap back, as long as they don't head their way down on towards the pit lane at any point. But there we go, and that's just the situation that is going to have to, play into the hands somewhat of those cars that are laps down. You just have to hope that you're able to get yourself ahead of the leader when it comes towards that pace car. We have a big moment. That's Troy Anderson having a little bit of an off-track excursion down towards that pit exit there. That's the number 44 car. That was contact with the 24. That was Henderson. Wheel-to-wheel contact coming through the middle of the corner. Anderson able to hold on to it, though. We'll get another look on the replay. You see him taking that inside, just down a little bit too much. Bang with the wheel, and then going for a little bit of lawn mowing on that inside, but that lawn is looking absolutely fantastic anyway, so not sure if that will help with things. But still, with 111 laps now about to be completed, Henderson still holding very, very strong, and that instant wasn't his fault by any means. It was just the other driver going a little bit too deep on the inside, drifting up, banging wheels, and that's all she wrote.
Yeah, and I mean, you gotta try the best you can, and the speed was scrubbed as such that it allowed him to not really lose much, though he is one lap down, which makes me wonder where Christian Chandler is, because he certainly didn't lose anything. And there he is, as Christian Chandler, the 73 machine, is not that far behind Joshua Wolf, of all things. And I'm almost starting to think here, because Joshua Wolf came out right behind Travis Henderson, which is where Troy was, that we're not going to see one of those races as Travis Henderson pulls into pit lane. We're not going to see one of those races, Connery, where the leader will win by multiple laps.
Possibly, maybe. Henderson, though, down on towards the pit lane, and I have to wonder if this is damage related. You know, banged towards the left rear wheel there. Could maybe have knocked the wheel out in terms of its tracking, so he's just going to be able to get that one fixed and get that one back out there. But there was someone in the chat that also said that some of these drivers may have underfueled expecting cautions. So, you know, if we have like long green flag runs like this, then those drivers that have underfilled expecting cautions, now they're going to be looking a little bit embarrassed.
Yeah, well, and not only that, I mean, I could fuel is heavy. I mean, so if you would fuel the car up for just about halfway, and then you would fuel the car up again, it allows you to have a stable setup. You know, you try to think you're going to pit around lap 100, lap 110, something like that. It's a fine plan, but I would have thought that maybe taking that attempt on lap 80 when we had that caution for the single car spinner. You know, that probably would have been the better decision, but you know what do I know? I will say, however, the fuel gauge does not work on our thing, so I'm not able to go around and sneak looking around, see how much fuel people have, but I think that's an understandable thing, competition-wise, but I'm pretty sure that these guys are stopping for fuel instead of tires, though, of course, a new set of tires certainly will be nice, you know, after 100 laps of blazing on these tires here around with this Milwaukee mile circuit. It certainly isn't a bad thing as Christian Chandler goes around Colin Marzoff for a second time.
Passaponte then, right on the back of your second place runner right now. That's Joel Valverde. So Valverde yet again has quite a bit of defensive work to do in this one, getting himself down onto that yellow curb through 3 and 4 and pushing out wide here, or wider than Passaponte on the exit of the corner. Passaponte, though, has a very big run here, coming down the pit straight, outside line chosen. Maybe big up and under on the cards here. No, he's just going to stick on that outside line. A big wide arc through the corner, a late apex, looking for the traction off, but unsuccessful in doing so right now. So Valverde, you know, how many more of these moves does he have to defend at this point?
I mean, I'm guessing if however many laps there are left in this race, he doesn't seem to matter where he goes, though he does get a little bit loose coming off the corner exit, and I do think that is starting to get to the whole tire thing. I know we were joking about how bulletproof these tires were at one point, but it does seem, at least as far as comfort goes, that these drivers are getting a little squirrely with the old tires, though of course with the lightened fuel load, I think it balances out as far as the lap times go, Connery, because you're just saying, I think Christian Chandler has put down a fastest lap somehow.
Yeah, this is not tire dependent, especially when you have Chandler running fastest laps with 120 lap old tires. So yeah, that's you know, going to be the situation as it is right now. He set that fastest lap time just around about 5 or so laps ago, so it hasn't really dropped off much off that pace. So yeah, it's going to be, you know, maybe a fuel strategy race for those that might have underfueled the car, but we had no reports of anyone doing that. You know, that wasn't handed to us before the race by some inside source. So we're just working based off assumptions here, which is sometimes what we have to do, unfortunately, but because drivers of teams do not really want to have their strategies just plastered on the broadcast. So, you know, sometimes that's what we have to deal with. But Yo Valverde, what he has to deal with right now is a very, very quick Passaponti right behind him, trying to work his way through. But as we've seen with pretty much all the battles throughout this race, Cam, it's going to be very, very, very tough for that car behind to be able to do anything in this situation. It just has to be relying on a mistake from the car in front for you to slot yourself through, and Passaponti is now hoping that Valverde will make a mistake, and well, he's going to try and force one perhaps as he runs right on the back of that car. And I was going to say, you know, right on the back bumper, these cars don't have bumpers, right on the gearbox, well, the gearbox isn't there, so it's basically just the engine, right on the back of his engine coming through that particular corner. But Passaponti, again, big run through the corner. There's a bit of lap traffic getting itself involved here, so maybe the objective here for these cars that are trying to get their way through on their competitors is to use the lap traffic as a pick. But the thing is, the lap traffic has been very well behaved throughout this race.
Yeah, most definitely, and that is the gearbox. I mean, you do have to completely crush the exhaust. But yeah, you can see right where the tires are, the axles, the drive of the tires are basically going straight into the gearbox. These cars, they look so simple, but it's beautiful to see them as they're driving around. I mean, they're actually extremely complex Formula machines. But for the modern day, it's a couple of wishbones. The engine is a structural membrane. I mean, these cars were very, very prototype. I can only imagine what would have happened the first time that somebody who's only ever ran with engines up front looking at one of these cars and going, At least I'm presuming that that's what happened. Yeah, these cars are great oval racers, as Diego Jimenez Hormilia will go to the outside for João Valverde, and that allows both him and Adam Fasciaponti to get behind a lap car, the 941, the Bombshell Motorsport machine. But yeah, for Fasciaponti, I almost think like he's just a little bit uncomfortable in this second half of this run, I guess I should say. And for Christian Chalnier, I mean, 21 seconds now, and he's basically on Kurt Krum's rear, and he will be passing Kurt Krum. And Kurt Krum, I mean, you know, you got to give him an A for effort, you know, with the whole, I think he just fueled the car to the finish and was taking tires anyways, but, you know, coming in on lap 80, not the worst decision.
Also not the best, you know, because you know, with how the tires have been behaving throughout this race, I think this, you know, even if Kurt Krum had fallen back to that position, you know, not by coming down towards the pits, maybe from like an on-track incident or something like that, even with the old tires that he had, I think he would have still been able to work himself back up into this position, I believe. So it's, you know, of course, we can't just rewind time, just have a little bit of a play with the time stream and able to figure out exactly what would have happened if he, you know, if he didn't take tires. But it's just the situation as it is right now. He runs in P5, albeit one lap down. And I have to wonder now, Cam, if it's going to be the case whether Christian Challenger will be able to lap the entirety of the field if this goes green. I think he will. And it's just a case of whether he'll be able to do it twice, I suppose.
Yeah, and on our screens right now, Troy Anderson is working still on the rear of Travis Henderson, and Joshua Wolf is there watching along. But, or actually, it's David H. Baker this time as they're slotting on by. So Troy just doesn't seem to be able to catch a break. People he's behind is Joshua Wolf now locked in, and Joshua Wolf is actually 2 laps down compared to Troy Anderson's 1 lap down. So it's not necessarily a battle for position, though they are quite near each other on the track. And I will say, it is going to be kind of the field and then Christian Challenger, which of course is fun, I think, in some aspects. But we also have to remember, I mean, we have seen these good duels, but nobody is just able to really get by one another. And either that's because people are being a little too polite, or they don't want to slam the door, or alternatively, because when we went to Michigan last month, there was a race which had no winner. Yes, indeed, because it was Christian Chandler and I forget whom the first car that passed the start-finish line was off the top of my head, so my apologies there to my own point. But yeah, they kind of did a little bit of wreckers or checkers on the backstretch, and unfortunately for that driver who crossed the line first, he wasn't happy about it. Christian was not happy about it. Nobody was happy about it, and I think over the look of it, it was described in the article as kissing your sister. And so I don't think there was an actual technical winner in that race, which is the right decision to make, because that's not how things go. And I think maybe that's kind of just in the back of the minds of people. They don't really want to go around punting people, but alternatively, you really kind of can't go around punting people in a car that doesn't really have any puntable surfaces.
No, I mean, if you do decide to use the non-existent chrome horn in these cars, then you're basically just damaging yourself as well as the other car ahead of you. So it's not really an option that can be used here. So we won't get the typical, I guess, short track racing like you see in NASCAR here in the Lewis 49s. I think that will be detrimental to anyone that tries it, I believe. But right now, we've still got this relatively close to Alpha P6 out there on circuit. That's the number 33. David Baker currently leading that particular train around the 1 mile oval. Troy Anderson second in line. We also have Joshua Wolf right on the back of this one as well, just inside of that top 10. So coming across the line and getting ourselves, well, for these guys, at least they're getting on to lap number 132, but the race leader is on lap 134 already. So that just shows how much dominance that Christian Chandler has been able to establish here in this race, and continues to look forward and try and get to that checkered flag once all 200 laps have been completed here. And of course, Challenger, he's actually still setting basically fastest lap pace lap times while still stuck in traffic. So I guess that's all that really needs to be said in that situation. And well, David Baker, he can't concern himself about what the drivers ahead of him are doing right now, because he currently sits around about 12-16 seconds back from them. So it's going to be all eyes behind here for David Baker, but I think he's going to still be feeling confident in his abilities here due to how difficult it is to get past.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talk about difficulties to get past. I mean, look at the number 44 machine of Troy Anderson. He has been locked behind any number of drivers, but currently he's behind the 33 of David Baker. And this is the battle for 6th position. And what we are going to do is we're going to do a Race TV fan immersion here on the iRacing Esports Network for the Tony Bettenhausen 200 from the Milwaukee Mile. We're going to go on board with Troy Anderson. We're going to see just how if Troy can get by David Baker, or at the very least not crash into the back of him, because that's almost happened a couple of times. But as they cross the start-finish line for 136, we'll go fan immersion side by side. shot on the Race Spot TV fan immersion. Troy Anderson finally getting by David H. Baker. Just spent a couple of those laps working that inside to outside to inside line, and finally got a door to the inside and was able to move onto the inside of David H. Baker and pick up that one position. And I have to say, if you're Troy Anderson, Connery, I mean, it almost feels like a win at that point, because you finally have gotten by somebody despite the fact that you've been trying to pass people for the last 140 some odd laps.
Yeah, it's going to be a welcome relief there for Troy Anderson to head his way through, and he's already got a decent gap over David Baker as it stands. It's around about coming up towards half a second between the two, and he just was able to make that pass just 2 or 3 laps ago. So still, onwards and upwards here for Troy Anderson. And while the next car that's down the road compared to him is currently Kurt Crum, and that is 12.5 seconds further down the road. So it's going to be a long, long time out there for Troy Anderson. Coming towards the end of this race. So he's basically hoping for a caution at this stage to bunch everyone back up, because right now I don't think a 12-second gap is going to be surmountable with the laps that we have remaining without any sort of outside influence here. So there we go. That's just the situation as it stands. We still have the battle for P2 though. That's going to be Joao Valverde versus Fassaponte, and Fassaponte really had a kind of a little bit lackluster sort of last 20 or so laps, but now he's been able to get himself back in a position where he's able to challenge. He did drop off the back of Valverde for a considerable amount of this most recent green flag run, but now back in position, back ready to challenge and get himself on that second step.
Yeah, absolutely, and this is for the podium finish here. He's going to maybe look to lock that outside line, but he's just not going to do it, as we are joined by OG Race Spot Cat, because we're babysitting him for the next little while. So we have the original Race Spot Cat, and what better time to do classic racing than then, as Adam Fasciaponte tried to do that inside line. Joao Valverde was very, very quick to cut that off, and what's that? Somebody coming down to the pits?
No, Challenger, that's your race leader, about to lap the entire field.
I do. Oh, yes, I do see that blue car of the 73 machine. As he's coming in there, and Joao Valverde almost losing the rears there, as he will lose the rears. This will allow Adam Fasciaponte to get the outside run. This might be the chance that he was looking for, and he doesn't seem to be able to do anything with it, because, of course, Joao Valverde has to wash out to the middle section of the racetrack. Oh my goodness me, as Christian Chalnier will get on by him, and so now he just has to get by Joao Valverde, and he will do it in 150 laps, I'm going to say. Actually, no, it'll be lap 148 that Christian Chalnier has lapped the entire field, and that is just probably one of the more impressive things I have seen to date.
Fassaponte trying to follow through in the tire tracks of your race leader. That's fantastic work there. Very strategic move there from the 84. Just, you know that car ahead of you has to get out of the way of the race leader at some point, and there is where you take your chance while he's stricken and trying to let the faster traffic through. That's Fassaponte up into P2 in this race. Great work in using Challenger as a pick, whereas usually you see lead lap cars use lapped cars as a pick to try and get through in that competition. It's the opposite that has happened here.
Yeah, most definitely. And I will say, just for Christian Chalnier, absolutely fantastic performance. Also, part 2 here, because I wanted to get the results of the 1963 race here at Milwaukee. The 1963 race is called the Tony Bettenhausen 200. I figured that we were calling it the Tony Bettenhausen 200 because, well, we have the Bettenhausen brothers on the iRacing service. So that's really, which I believe the grandchildren of Tony Bettenhausen. So that's really cool. But I will give you one guess who took victory here in 1963 at the Milwaukee Mile for the 1963 USAC Championship car season.
Is it Tony Bettenhausen?
No, it's Jim Clark.
I know he wouldn't, but yeah. Who is it?
It's Jim Clark.
Ah.
He led 200 laps, which I think Christian Chandler is trying to do the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, I know the major series like to look into the history and rerun some of these races on the iRacing service, and they've just so happened to pick that race, and it might become more true than perhaps they thought before getting into this race, as Challenger looks to lead all 200 laps here, just like Jim Clark did, and he's about coming up to 45 laps to be able to get that one done.
Now look at the names here. What a series this was. AJ Foyt came in second position, and Dan Gurney came home in third. So that's interesting, though I will say AJ Foyt did finish on the lead lap, so we don't have an AJ Foyt here, however, so that basically is going to be the Christian Challenger show as he goes by Riley Thompson, who is in 8th position, now a second time. But yeah, look at just the gap that he has pushed over the second position of Adam Fasciaponte, and we talk about reliefs of getting by. For both Troy Anderson and Adam Fasciaponte, these have been 50, 60, 70 lap attempts to get by the car in front of you, and now they have finally done it, and now they've only got 45 laps to go.
Yeah, absolutely. So getting into the final quarter of this race then, and like you've said, Cam, it's been the Christian Challenger show right at the front of the field. You can see that up on your screen. 1 lap between himself and his next nearest competitor of Adam Fasciaponte, as Fasciaponte able to work his way through on the Valverde over the last couple of laps here today. So we're on lap number 156 right now, and really the battles kind of have spread themselves out at this stage. The closest one that we do have is P14. That one's going to be Mike Gaunt versus Andreas Robertson in the 333 car, trying to give chase to the 886 here. And, let's see what happens in terms of this one. 1/10 of a second faster was Robertson on that previous lap, but that doesn't mean anything when it's so difficult to try and get yourself even alongside here, let alone all the way through. And it's just a battle of who can keep that inside line held the longest.
Yeah, and it's really, I do think that you are capable of throwing the car around over a series of laps to pass the car in front of you. The problem is it's just really hard to do that, as of course the major series on the YouTube letting us know. It is the very first time in USAC that a rear-engined car won, which was the Lotus Ford. So that's really cool, I think. Because the old Indianapolis cars, they basically looked like this, only the engine was front mounted, and that's they basically became sprint cars in as far as dirt racing goes, as far as we know. Rear engine never really took off in dirt racing, however, which is, I think, understandable. As Kurt Crown is on pit lane, and I don't think he had enough fuel. I think he had to come into pit lane and get some fuel, and so he got tires, of course, while they were refueling the car. And so for Kurt Crum, he went into 5th position here, and I don't think that paid off. I think he was maybe expecting that his car would last, but it just does not. And I will say he will drop back down to 7th position, I think.
Yeah. Right now, yeah, he's 4.2 seconds behind the next car. That's going to be Riley Thompson. That's that amount of time down the road. You can see that in the bottom of the screen. And it hasn't really exactly worked out there for Kurt Crum. And credit where credit's due. He tried something different in terms of the strategy, and this time it hasn't worked out. But on other occasions, maybe in a couple of later races this season, maybe a slightly different strategy would work out for him. But in terms of this race, it hasn't really, and the banking on the yellows simply hasn't worked here in this situation, since it looks like, touch wood, we're going to go green to the end, but that could very much all change as drivers start to get a little bit more desperate coming into the final good couple of laps of this race. So, it's still no guarantees that we'll be able to see green all of the way. We might just see just one more of those caution flags come out. Cordell Colon is also down on towards the pit lane as well. He's 24 laps down, so it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. He just takes a visit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say I did notice some front end damage on that car, so I think maybe perhaps he took an excursion somewhere. But I will say, speaking of the future, We have 2 more rounds left here in the Majors Series, and I have them before us. We have round number 13, which is the Bathurst 500. With the V8 supercars, you can pick either your Holden or your Ford, and yeah, it is going to be an 81-lap excursion for the Bathurst 500 here in Australia, which we are not going to be using the Lotus 49 for. That's thankfully. That would be bad. Although some drivers may prefer that over the supercars. The supercars are... It's been interesting for me because the supercars are basically what would have happened if NASCAR stock car racing decided to go towards street circuit racing or circuit racing rather than oval racing. And I've always think that there's always this weird cousinry with the two.
Yeah, they're also particularly tough to drive as well here on iRacing. But of course, we have had that announcement where iRacing are bringing a good couple of new V8 supercars to the iRacing series, which I know the Australian and New Zealand and the Australians and the New Zealanders are particularly excited about because they have been struggling with the current supercars as they are, of course, the old tyre wall situation. But of course, with the new supercars, they will get themselves onto the new tyre model as well, which has been on the Formula 3 car. It's been on the new Audi TCR car as well, and of course the Skip Barber and a couple of GT1 machines have also had that update as well. So maybe the Australian and the New Zealand community will be happy with the new supercars as they are once they arrive on service, and we can continue to have some fantastic racing there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not quite up to date, as it were, as it were, on the supercars. I thought we had the modern supercars, but I'm presuming then that means that we had like the Gen 1 modern supercars, and they're on Gen 2 or something, or Gen 3 supercars. I'm not actually familiar. But I will say, I really do love watching supercar racing. It is like well, there's no shame in it, but it is just absolutely fun to watch. I love watching supercars racing around circuits and whatnot. And I will say, I know that on face this doesn't look like it's that exciting anymore. I don't remember the last time we have seen an oval racer lap the field that it wasn't related to like a caution coming out while everyone was on pit lane or something. That is so impressive for Christian Chandler. He is putting his foot down as he wants to be the champion for this, and if he manages to pull this off, which it does look like he is going to, sans an incident, it will be just so impressive. And also, so just as far as scheduling goes, October 13th is going to be the Bathurst 500. November 3rd is going to be the final race of the Majors 2019 season, and that will be the Brazilian Grand Prix with the Williams FW31. So not the modern McLaren, but we're going to the DRS-free, KERS-free formula car of the Williams, and they're going to be racing around Interlagos for 71 laps. So that I think that will be a fun excursion. Of course, the last time I covered a Grand Prix race was at Interlagos, actually, when I just started commentating back in 2014, I think, when we were racing the Williams, and I think that was actually wins all the time, championship like 9 billion times. What am I thinking of? Who's the guy that... Cronkite? No, not Martin Cronkite. The guy that came before Martin Cronkite. Yeah, Gregor Hoodoo. You'd think I would remember those things, but no, alas. I will say Christian Chandler is now going to go to the inside and pass Troy Anderson. And I just think that's just so... He's already up to the 5th position car for 2 laps down. Is he going to do 2 laps?
I mean, it's possible. We have about 27 laps remaining next time he heads himself across that start-finish line. So yeah, it could possibly be the case here that this might happen. So, which would be an interesting predicament. I think if you're this dominant at this stage of the race, I think you have to have an objective for you to just not lose your mind. I suppose. You know, when you have a lap over the rest of the field, you might as well think, why not two? You know, we might as well go for it. It just gives you something to chase, and you know, it's like Christian Challenger. You know, he's going to most definitely at this stage. I mean, unless I'm literally putting the curse of the commentator on him right now, he is probably going to end up extending his championship lead by quite a considerable margin here for this race. So, you know, making that look a little bit more secure. Of course, the main objective for him is just getting towards the checkered flag. But, you know, when he's in a little bit of no man's land and just having to deal with lap traffic, then that would quickly drive me insane. But he seems to be doing well.
Yeah, I mean, I would be having fun. I mean, you're just throwing the car around, but at the same time, for all I know, this is super hard for Christian to do. Like, I don't know. It could just be like he's going to come in here after the race and he's going to be exhausted, covered in sweat, and he's going to be like, every single corner I thought I was going to crash the car, because, you know, for us, it just looks like it's a nice Sunday jaunt for him as we're hitting lap 175. Yes, that is only 24 laps to go, 23 laps to go. You think I would be doing the math before I started talking, but this is me we're talking about. So for me, this is just, it's so impressive to have such a dominant performance. And alternatively, looking for everyone else, everyone other those stories have kind of come to a natural conclusion, as it were. I don't think there's really anyone near anyone that they're actually trying to pass.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the cars that you are seeing out there on circuit are just mixing things up with lap traffic situations and things like that. So it's at this stage, it seems like all the battles have fizzled out. But do you know what might make things a little bit more interesting?
If it started
I was
raining.
hoping a yellow would just come out right there. No. that's what I was trying for. It didn't happen, unfortunately. But meanwhile, Fascia Ponti, something has happened. The number 84
Ooh.
big shunt with the wall outside of 2, and well, he keeps that on circuit, so there will be no yellow. But let's have a look at the replay.
Oh my. He just runs a little wide, and that's all self. That is self done right there. The car was out of the corner, and he just let it drift to the right there, and he nailed those tires. And yeah, here we go with the slow motion. Actually, it looks like he's kind of white, just sliding out just a little bit, and then here you go as we're tracking, and then boop. And you would think these cars, that's like stainless steel right there. That's not going anywhere. But just so the tires are going to be fine, but just the rotation of the tires, that really would pop the car up like that. And that is just it's crazy that he managed to keep that together. I would have thought that he skidded the bottom of it and crashed.
Yeah, and well, I'm not really seeing any sort of trying to fling that car towards the left-hand side there. It seems like he kept the wheel straight and it just still drifted into the wall. So maybe a little bit of lapse in concentration there for the number 84. I'm not entirely sure the exact circumstances that he has to deal with there coming out of turn 2 that made him have an unfortunate altercation with the wall on the outside there. But he seems to be still holding pretty strong, because his last lap was a 29.7, which isn't really all that slow. It seems to be on the pace what he has been running previously, so he's lucky to get away with that one.
Yeah, he absolutely is. I think we have seen that these machines are good at vaulting. I think we've seen these cars racing at the Nürburgring, and of course there's that super famous picture with Jim Clark in the Lotus machine that's just 2 or 3 feet in the air, a complete suspension thing. So the car is obviously comfortable with the whole leaving the surface of the earth sort of thing. It's just clapping that safer barrier and climbing it, perhaps, that is the question. But yeah, as far as lap times go, there's really nothing to it. So that's probably the breath held in moment for the last 25, 30 laps, and if you're Gilles Villeneuve, I mean, you got to sit there and think, well, what else has to happen to allow me to get back up to second position, because Adam Fasciaponti is still just rating away, and actually, Adam Fasciaponti just got his clock cleaned by Diego Hormilia coming off of the final corner there, but they've managed to make that work.
Yeah, they have, so you do still have to treat the lap traffic with caution, it has to be said here towards the end of the race. So, a late race yellow here might throw a little bit of a spanner into the works. It won't affect Christian Challoner all that much, it has to be said, considering he does have a one-lap advantage over the rest of the field. But for everyone else that might be in relatively close battles, if the yellow does come out, then that will be maybe welcomed for some of the drivers here today, because the gaps do seem to still be remaining pretty large at this stage of the race. So coming up to around about 15 laps to go in this one, the current order stands like so. Christian Challoner leads from Fasciaponti in P2. So despite Fasciaponti having that big moment with the wall, he still maintains that second place here today. Joao Valverde in P3 with Uldis Gutierrez there in P4. That was going to trip me up forever. Troy Anderson in P5. David Baker P6. Kurt Crum 7th with Riley Thompson in 8th. Claude Belval in P9. And Travis Henson rounds out your top 10 here today. So, as I said, Cam, with 15 laps remaining, it seems like those gaps are all pretty large. It's just for some of the drivers hoping that a late race caution spices things up.
Most certainly, but even if a late race caution comes out, there is no wait around, so you would have all of your lap cars all split and everything like that. So you never know what could certainly happen. We almost had a caution there, but well, it just didn't happen as we were watching Marcus Niskanen and Mike Gaunt. That's whom that is the bombshell car. I had to see whom that was, but the 47 of Marcus Niskanen is 3/10 behind Mike Gaunt. And, we'll see if maybe he can get on by, but Marcus Niskanen has had a very up and down day all race long.
Yeah, started in P7, currently down in 15th, looking for 14th here as he can't find the traction on the outside of turns 3 and 4 there. Has to dart back in line, still trying this alternate line here, coming through turns 1 and 2. You can see a little bit of counter steering there, coming through the start of the corner, but there comes the big run there on the outside, and Niskanen, another little snap off the corner, but it looks like he'll just have this position gains. Nope, still has to stay high as Mike Gaunt still tries to fight this one on the inside line, still on board with Niskanen as he gets this pass complete around the outside of Gaunt. And that is also going to be Christian Challoner heading his way through as your race leader in that number 73 car. That's the second blue car in line there. So he'll put another lap on these guys in the not too distant future. Coming up to 10 laps to go.
Yeah, and 10 laps to go, and that'll be, just another lap. So I think that'll be a total of 6 laps down from Marcus Niskanen. There you go. So Christian he's been able to lock through the traffic so comfortably. As he has been going, and of course the race in real life took 2 hours. This one is going to take maybe 44 minutes. I'm going to say 1 hour 44 minutes might be it for this race, and Christian Challoner will have his hand on the Tony Bettenhausen 200. And Adam Fasciaponti will hopefully be finishing in the 3rd position. Gilles Villeneuve hopefully finishing in 4th. And I think that is basically all she wrote as far as the cars looking to pass other cars, because everyone else is pretty well separated from one another, Connery.
Yeah, I mean, the closest battle they do have is for P9, and that's Henderson and Belval. That one's currently separated by around about 4.5 tenths of a second. So unless Belval gets a move on here, I don't think we'll be seeing any passes before the end of the race. Although saying that, there is quite a bit of traffic ahead of these guys that might concern them. That's Marzolf on the outside there, trying to get himself out of the way of Travis Henderson. Does lose Henderson a little bit of time here, so Belval is able to close up once again, especially coming through 3 and 4. Big wide line into here will benefit him coming all the way through, and he can still try to give chase. He gained about 0.5 tenth of a second there on that last lap, and still trying to work at that gap as this race continues on and draws to very quickly to a close in a couple of moments' time. Christian Challenger getting a little bit of lap traffic here. He's able to squeak his way through. He's on the 7 to go mark, quickly heading towards 6 to go. Yellow, okay. 56 has had a big problem, and that's the driver that we were just talking about trying to make some moves. That is Claude Belval. What has happened here? It looks like it's a solo car spin down in towards 3 and 4 in the middle of the circuit as well. Has to be careful with those rejoins. He almost collects Joshua Wolf as he tries to spin himself back around.
Are we going to finish this race under caution?
Our green and white checkers on. That's the question you need to be asking.
I'm going to laugh if we just went 120 laps and we're going to somehow finish behind the pace car. But either way, so that could have been a lot worse than for Joshua Wolf. That was very, very close. He almost nailed Claude Belval, but thankfully everything worked out. So, for Christian Challenger, you've got 1 lap on the entire field. No issues at all. There were any fuel concerns, which I'm sure there weren't. We have now got a couple of more laps of behind the pace car, and now this is where things get interesting as far as that goes, because you'll have Adam Fasciaponti. You have to figure out where the lap cars all come in, but it'll be Fasciaponti, Valverde, and Puticlus. And so basically your podium, depending on how many laps we'll have to go, is basically wide open now.
Yeah, so we'll have to wait and see. And of course, since we have a single file restart here, the whole caution process is reduced by 1 lap. So we'll get ourselves green a little bit faster. So we will have at least a short green flag run, I believe, here at the end of the event. And well, it'll end up being maybe just a 1 or 2 lap sprint to get ourselves a finish here today. Since looking at the info for the session, it does not look like green and white shakers are enabled, and that wasn't given in the pre-race briefing that is the series page. So this is going to be an interesting one, and well, it's going to be all on Fasciaponti, all on João Verde, and Puticlus in that leading, well, the 1 lap behind the race leader position right now that they are in. So those will be the guys fighting it out for those final podium positions. In the mid-pack, you do have Anderson, Baker, Crum, and Riley and Crum, excuse me. So those 3 cars are 2 laps down, and you have Thompson, Henderson, Belval, Wolf, all 3 laps down. So it's going to be these isolated battles inside however many laps you are down as a driver right now.
I think there might be 2. I think it might be 2 to go, because if the lights go out this time that'll be 198. And then we'll go to green 199, and we'll have 199 and 200. And so we might look at 2 laps. However, this is the interesting thing. Normally, you would think, if there were any weight-wise, a lapped car would politely pull to the pits or something like that, or whatever. Nobody can do that because everybody else has opposition on the same lap. There's 3 cars 1 lap down. There's 3 cars 2 laps down. There's 4 cars 3 laps down. 2 cars 4 laps down, and 4 cars 6 laps down. Everyone has competition as the lights will go out on the pace car. So good on me. Finally did it right once. But for Christian Challenger, he will look to go away. So it'll be Challenger, Thompson, Niskanen, Gaunt, Robertson, Cordell Cologne, Anderson, Fasciaponti, and then you've got Baker and Valverde. So this is where things are going to be interesting. You're going to want to watch Fasciaponti, the 84 machine, because David H. Baker, who is 2 laps down, is between Valverde and Fasciaponti, and that is your 2nd and 3rd position. And now, this is the interesting thing, Connery, because Zhao hasn't really had to be on the attack. He's been on the defensive.
Yeah, he has. So we're coming towards the end of the caution period here. Lights out on the pace car, looking to dive itself in, and then the field will be under the control of Christian Challenger once again. But behind, who knows what will happen? It's lapped cars in and amongst lapped cars right now. green flag out for your 2-lap sprint towards the end of the race here as they all get themselves going. And, well, we have to immediately look a little bit further back because it is going to be that battle between Ponti and Valverde. That's going to be the important one. Well, Ponti has gotten away very, very well here on this first lap, not really having any of the late restart dramas here, as he just needs to keep it clean and get it towards the end. 2 by 2 involving lap traffic all over the place there, coming through 3 and 4. White flag flies. We've got 1 more lap to go.
And Christian Chalnier, that 73 machine, looking dominant as ever. He has already leapt himself to what would be about a 4-second lead, but of course he's got an entire lap between that. And so the closest competition is Adam Ponti, 1 lap down. As you can see, all of these cars, they're just maneuvering around each other, trying to see if they can get by each other one more time. As here we go, it is lap 200 for Christian Chalnier, and the checkered flag is out. And just like that, Christian Chalnier has put on probably one of the most dominant performances this commentator has ever seen. He's your race winner for Kinetic Europe, the 73 machine that Lotus, carrying Christian Chalnier to one of the most dominant race wins I think I've ever seen. Ponti will keep the 2nd position. Valverde will keep the 3rd position. And it looks to me like just about everyone else finished right about where they were towards the end of that one. And Connery, you could say we always hate doing commentary for races that have, 15, 20 caution flag periods and are just an absolute wreckfest. This is kind of the opposite of it. We really, you had, 4 total cautions, and it really didn't affect the race much at all, and you gotta love that. And Christian Chalnier has parked his car right on the start-finish stripe, and he is waiting for the next couple of cars because I think he is going to do some donuts.
There we go, Christian Chalnier, one of the most dominant victories that we've seen in the Major Series. He is the magician of the Magic Mile, it has to be said here. So the British driver burns that rubber down. I'm pretty sure those tires will still be good for another about 20 races, even after he gets those burnouts done. But those are your official race results up on screen for you now, Cam.
Yeah, Christian Chalnier for Kinetic Europe. He takes the victory. Adam Ponti for the Unorthodox Motorsport Europe will finish in 2nd. Gel Valverde for Kinetic Europe will finish in 3rd. Pilotoclis will finish in the 4th position. Troy Anderson in 5th. David Baker is your first finisher for the Grizzly Motorsports in the 6th position. Kurt Crum will come home in the 7th position in the 777 for Bombshell. And as Riley Thompson, Travis Henderson, and Claude Bellball are your race the people rounding out your top 10 for the finish of the race here at the Milwaukee Mile. And you have got Joshua Wolf, who had an up and down race. Diego will come home in 12th position. Thomas Pedersen in 13th. 14th is going to be Marcus Niskanen. 15th, Mike Gaunt. 16th, Andreas Robertson. We got Nolan Marzoff. And then Cordell Cologne will finish your 18th position. 26 laps down. And that was your 18-car field here. And, it didn't really feel like an 18-car field. You hear 18 cars and you go, wow, that's not a lot of them. But there was, for when the going was going, there certainly was a lot of action.
Yeah, absolutely. And you do have to respect a lot of the drivers out there today because they've been thrown into a car that most of them are very much not used to on a track that is a fairly interesting pairing for the Lotus 49. Even though it did kind of happen, if you look back through history, it's still a very, very tough course to be able to work through here in these cars, especially with the lack of overtaking opportunities. It seems like defending was the name of the game here today, and even then your race winner, Christian Chalnier, didn't really need to do a lot of it because he was dominant all the way through, a good couple of tenths of a second, a lap faster than everyone else here. He is, of course, the oval specialist here on the European side of the Majors Series, so that one isn't entirely surprising, but he still needed to get to the checker flag when it all mattered, and even a late race caution didn't really put a roadblock into the middle of his trajectory.
No, not at all, and so that is going to just secure him as far as the championship points go. It's another win for him as Matthias Magnussen, whom was not in this particular race, but that doesn't say that he didn't do a race. Marcus Niskanen, who is in 3rd in the points, will finish in 14th here, so that's going to be kind of a big push for him. Kurt Crum will have a good finish here. But either way, we're going to go take a break, see who climbs out of their cars and heads on up to the booth for us for our post-race coverage. But this has been the Tony Bettenhouse 200. Thank you so much for making us part of your day, and don't go anywhere because we have got the post-race interviews as we take a quick break. 200 laps. And then we're all led by one Mr. Christian Challenger. The driver from England has taken victory here at the Magic Mile, Milwaukee, here in Wisconsin. An absolutely fantastic race and a massive challenge for all that were involved. The race results might not look anything too extravagant, but I will tell you, it says welcome iRacing.com sim fans. That's really cool. Sorry, little Easter eggs. We do have Christian Challenger and we do have Adam Fasciaponte to bring into the booth here at Wisconsin. And let me tell you, Lotus 49s at the Milwaukee Mile, that's, you could double the size of the field and I could enjoy that. But either way, we have not just race winner by over one lap, not just your championship points leader, but your championship points leader that has now gotten another win. It's Christian Challenger. Christian, congratulations, and absolutely wonderful job, and really trying to reenact what Jim Clark was able to do some 60 years ago.
Yeah, thank you, man. That was a ton of fun. That was a really cool car track combination. I mean, I honestly don't know a great deal about the history of why we were kind of doing that event, but I'm really glad we did. I think it worked out really, really good. Actually a lot better than I was expecting. The race was really clean. It was really, really fun.
Yeah, and you were able to pull away almost instantaneously, but you did find yourself in lapped traffic a lot. And I mean, it's one thing to always talk about, competition and all that things. I just trying to cleanly get by people who were trying to pass each other. Just take me through that in these open wheel cars, no downforce. Just roll me through that.
I mean, it's really tricky because obviously, especially with the position I was in, there was kind of really nothing to be gained for me. But at the same time, when you were catching guys who were in a battle and so on, like I caught the battle for second, and I really didn't want to mess it up. I did want to get by, obviously, but like you say, it's difficult because the car is pretty unwieldy, and once you've kind of got it set for a line into the corner, that's kind of it, Like if you've chosen the line and the guy then pulls up a ton, then it's really difficult to move around him. And I was just trying to be as considerate as I guess I could be. I was trying to make it really clear when I was gonna go to the inside of people, I'd pull like way out to the inside of them going down the straightaway. And I hope it was okay for people. I felt like I kind of made it easy for people, and I feel like they made it really easy for me. So I'd like to give those guys a shout out because they didn't fight me. They didn't put me in like crazy positions. They ran their race, and they kind of made the whole lapping process sort of easy for both of us. So everybody, I think, did a really good job today.
And speaking of everybody, how many people were involved in getting this car prepped and ready for you? I can't imagine that you were just sort of hopped in the baseline and just threw it out there, and you've never been on the car and the track before until you took the green flag. You know, how much practice did you end up having to put to take the victory here by over one lap?
I put a fair bit of practice into the car. I mean, when I kind of drove it initially on the baseline, it didn't really feel good to me, but it felt fun, and because it was fun, I did a ton of laps with it, and I kind of did something which I'm not gonna mention about how I did it. I'll mention it tomorrow for people who are interested, and I'll post my setup and everything and an explanation of it. But I kind of figured something that you could do, and all I'll say is that it's kind of interesting that you can do certain things when you don't have tech inspection limits, and
Right?
that really gained us a lot of speed.
Well, I mean, you know, they didn't exist back then, so what the heck? Go for it. But probably one of the places that does have tech inspections is the V8 supercar wagon, which is the best segue I could come up with on short notice. We are going to be going to Bathurst for the Bathurst 500 in 1 month's time, and, well, it is a degree different than what we just did here at Milwaukee, I would suggest. You're going to be happy to run the supercars?
Yeah, I really enjoyed running around in the Americas kind of region last year with it, and that's a car I also really kind of have a lot of fun with. I want to say it's similar to this. It's not similar to this. It looks nothing like it or anything like that, but it's the same kind of. It's a car that just doesn't want to do anything that you want it to do, and you're kind of wrestling it the whole time. And I have a lot of fun with that, so it's something I look forward to. I had a good race there last year, and I'm kind of hoping that we might see. I know a couple of people don't like ringers and stuff in the league, but I'd like to see a couple of the V8 Supercar ringers turn up, because I'd like to know how I stack up with them, because I kind of like to keep tabs on where I am in both driving and setup. So it could be a really fun race if we get a couple of those guys in there as well. But yeah, I definitely look forward to that. It's one of my favorite races we do here.
Yeah, and 2 races to go, and so best of luck for you. Congratulations on your victory here at the Milwaukee Mile, and well, thanks so much for hopping in and giving us some of your time. Anyone you'd like to give a hello to before we let you go?
Yeah, I'd just like to give a big shout out to all the Kinetic guys. I know they put a lot of laps in, and they had a really good race yesterday. They locked out the top 3, and we had 1, 3, and 4 today. So hopefully, kind of the guys who are running in the Americas region can sort of maybe do the same. It looks like their race is perhaps a little bit more stacked than ours was, so it'll probably be a bit harder for them, but hopefully they can kind of have a good run too. That'd be really nice to end the weekend with 3 kind of strong races for the team.
Oh, there you go, Christian Chandler, your victor by over 1 lap here at the Milwaukee Mile. And, well, thanks very much for hopping in. And next we have got Connery Maddock with Adam Fasciaponte.
Yeah, Adam, that was a fairly interesting race for you, it has to be said. And you had a little bit of a scare later on in the race where you had an unfortunate altercation with a wall on the outside of turn 2. Just take me through what happened, because it was it was quite a weird instant from an outside observer. It just seemed like you drifted and you continued to sort of drift wide until you actually found something hard.
Well, yeah, that's pretty much exactly what happened. Just a little bit of loss of focus. I had a lap car that was like running low on the straightaways, like he was going to let me go, but then he wasn't letting me go. And once I got by him, I just kind of looked in my mirror for a second, like, what the heck, you know? And when I did that, I drove into the wall. So shockingly, the car actually was pretty much fine afterwards. It drove a little bit different, but speed-wise, it was still fast.
Yeah, that surprised us as well. And, well, you were one of the few drivers that were actually able to pull off an overtake in this race, in the 200-lap race that we've just had. And, well, you were able to do it over Joao Valverde. It took a good couple of laps to be able to get that one done. But what was your strategy to try and get past?
Well, actually, for most of the time I was behind him, I wasn't really trying to pass him. I was just kind of using him as a rabbit to set my pace and just run a good consistent pace. and pull away from the guys behind me. And I just figured, eventually an opportunity would present itself. And when Christian went by us to lap us, I got a good position on him. And, once I got by him, I was able to pull away from him, which I was kind of surprised at because earlier in the race, he was catching me at one point. So I thought he was a little bit faster than me. But, yeah, I was just happy to have a nice, uneventful race until the last 20 laps there. And, I mean, it's an honor for me, honestly, just to sit on the front row next to Challenger. I mean, he's in a class of his own. You guys know that.
I remember a good couple of years ago when I was racing in the sort of the UK-based oval series that we have. We have like a Sunday truck series that used to go on and a Thursday Xfinity series, and I saw Christian Challenger racing those, and I actually raced with him in those as well. So it's amazing to see him like go up into the Peak Antifree series and do what he does up there, and then just think a few years ago he was just running in UK stuff. But he is a talent. But the thing is, it's still a very good points haul for you, Adam. And looking into the next rounds of the season, are you feeling confident that you're able to improve positions in terms of the points?
Yeah, I was just real happy to get a top 10 out of this one, to be honest. I mean, this car and track combination is so difficult, and I've only raced this car once before. So the next two races, Bathurst, I'm really looking forward to. Actually, I was running pretty good there last year until I did a very similar thing to what I did today and just drove it into the wall like a dummy. And actually, that time ruined my race, so luckily that didn't happen here. But and then the F1 race, I've never raced at that track, so that's a little bit of a question mark. But I do, again, just want to thank my team. Unorthodox has done a fantastic job this year, and they've made me such a better driver and helped me improve a lot. And it really is a team effort, and I really appreciate everything those guys do.
Well, there we go. Well, best of luck in the final rounds of the season there, Adam. Very good finish here today as well. P number 2 after starting in P number 2 as well. Just a well-run race there, Cam.
Absolutely, and I mean, you talk about how many cars finished this race. You would expect, hard card combination, hard track combination. You'd have a lot of retirements, but really, I don't think we had a single one outside of Cologne having his incident. But he even still finished. But I gotta say, I doubt that that's gonna go 2 for 2 when we go to Bathurst, Connery. It is just absolutely one of the most hardest and most difficult circuits I think you can race here on the service. It's Bathurst. It's fast. Everyone really likes it. It is terrifying, and I certainly can't wait for it. And I do say I always love classic motorsport racing here on iRacing, and I gotta say I love watching unique car combinations. So while this has been fun, I am still really excited for Bathurst, which will be October 15th.
Yeah, so in exactly a month's time from when we're speaking right now is that's going to race take place, and there's a reason why we call it basically Monaco on a hill or Monaco on a mountain. That 13th. Middle sector is just absolutely treacherous with how close those walls get. So it's going to take a special kind of driver to take the race win there in a month's time.
Yeah, I lied. It's the 13th. But meanwhile, congratulations to Christian Challenger for probably one of the most dominant victories I think any of us have ever seen. And of course, thank you for tuning in and watching. I've been Cameron Walsh. That's been Connery Maddock. That's been Hugo Louis doing all the camera work, the production work, and all of the TV cameras are from Histon Bellows Track Cams 22. And so long from Milwaukee as we will look forward to Bathurst. We look back to the past, and basically history repeated itself. The Lotus won by over an entire lap. So thank you all for tuning in. We wish you the best. Have a good rest of your month. We'll see you in October. This is the Major Series, the European split. So long.